you about your story.
Oh my goodness. I'm more excited about each and every one of us. Each one of the
Yes,
stories
but
that
every chapter has its own power, and your chapter is powerful, my love, really is. And honestly, I can't wait for this interview to start and for you to share about your story. So with that, let's hear it. What's your story about?
Oh wow. Let me make the long story short. My story is probably the story of so many women, so it's not so unique. This is the fascinating part for me when you start hearing and reading the stories of different women. We're in different parts of the world, yet we have a narrative that would, it's like it came from the same tapestry.
Yes.
Really, the story is how committed we are to our family and what we did, how nothing was a barrier when it came to taking care of our family and protecting our family. Really, I think that's probably the single one most important thing I learned. My story is not that unique. Maybe that's what makes it unique.
I think, Madhu, your story is fairly unique. So, my question to you was, your story starts with a young girl with a baby in her arms, lost on a station somewhere in Goa or Chennai, right? And trying to figure out in a crowd, find her place, find her solace, find a place of warmth, right? Lost. And then it ends with you being the most powerful number one realtor in Canada, and also giving back and fostering kids and giving them a life that's unimaginable. So tell me, how was the journey? What inspired you? What motivated that young, vulnerable, 20 some old young mom lost in that crowd and that station to where you are today? What motivated you? What inspired you? What got you from there to where you are today?
Wow. Probably number one thing, I can say that with complete confidence and conviction, the grace, the grace I always felt, whether you call it God, angels, goddess, your ancestors, different people call it different things. But for me, probably the simplest thing is the grace of God that I felt, because that was probably the most consistent thing in my life that I felt, no matter how small I felt and how vulnerable and how hurt. I always felt that I was meant for something bigger. I was like, you think, okay, I'm not meant to die like this.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
know, and it's shocking. I didn't want to have kids, not because I didn't love kids. On the contrary, I love kids so much that I thought if I had my own child, I'd be selfish and I wouldn't be putting myself out there for other children.
But yet you did. You have your own child, and yet you
Oh
supported
my
so
God.
many beautiful souls.
Exactly. Right. But as a young child, and as a young romantic person, when I say romantic, I have these ideas in my mind. Even as a child, I would dream of how wonderful it would be if each child in India could read and write.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love, like, story reading was my how should I say, reading was my place where I went to, where I was free and I could be anything and I could be anyone. So, like, instead of going to movies, I would read books. As long as I can remember, books were the place where I went to learn, because when you are really poor, as the poor can be, and you don't have the means to go to higher education, doesn't matter how smart you are. If you're taking care of, I was taking care of my siblings and I was taking care of my parents. they're already sold. So just a little bit of backstory. My parents had sold their family home to take care of my uncle's medical care.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, my father also ended up selling his business because, in India, medical care is not free, or, not reasonable even. So we were homeless. So we went and lived in this like a one-room house per se. And my mother sold our big pots and pans to send my sisters to school, my older sister to high school. So the deeper understanding of the education, and maybe I just tried to shove that too much into my kids, my foster kids. You don't understand the value of education. You have the free education. Are you kidding me? Take it and run. Like even today, I take courses. Like each one of you do. We're taking courses after courses because we understand the
The value.
value of education,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? So to go back to that, what kept me going really just the grace of God and books. If anytime I could get hands on the books, because I couldn't share a lot of that with anybody. I didn't know how to. I felt shame. Here I was, an Indian woman, have a child with a white man, not married. I don't even have my business anymore. Like I'd literally lost everything. I lost my father in and that's what gave me that was the final straw. That if this person is so evil, who, remember, thinking of a 22-year-old
Mhm.
who is completely trying to I was just breathing long enough to stay alive most of the time. And the final straw, like if this person is able to, whatever his thought process was at the time, keep the information from me that my father had passed away, what else is possible for this person?
Mm-hmm.
Even though he says he has the ability to kill me, and knowing his background that he was from the army,
Mm-hmm.
if he actually did do that, what would happen to my son?
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. But
And
there's so
I didn't have the capacity to process so much because I was living through torture day by day by day.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And so much of what I wrote in this chapter is not even there because it was still painful to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I didn't talk about in that chapter, that prior to leaving, I actually had a miscarriage because he had beat me up so bad that I was bleeding, and he had kept my son, and he wouldn't let me come in the house. So I was outside for almost 24 hours crying,
Mhm.
and he wouldn't let me come back in, and he would come out and throw hot water on me and go back inside. So I could hear my baby crying for food, but I couldn't go inside. And there was nobody that could help me. Right. So in the midst of it, that I had that miscarriage. So I was truly in probably a lot of shock. And looking back, I'm like, oh, how did I really survive? How did I make it through? But truly, I believe is the love and the responsibility I felt for my child, for my parents, knowing that my father is now dead, and I still had younger siblings that would need me to help them.
You took on that responsibility so gracefully, even though you're going through so many hardships yourself. And in your chapter, you really talk about how a few times you tried to leave that situation and somehow ended up back. So, what would you like to say to the women who are going through an abuse right now and can't seem to really break those ties?
It's hard because I don't think anybody could have told me anything, honestly. It that's the truth.
Mhm.
My friends tried telling me, and I kept telling them, oh, he's not, he's just upset because of what I said. He's upset because, he was hurt in the army. He's upset because his parents maybe didn't love him enough. He's upset because
Mhm.
of so many things. And what I did not understand at the time, I didn't understand anything about mental illness.
Ah,
I
yes.
did not know mental illness exists. Like, come on, in India, all you hear is, wo pagal hai, wo pagal nahi hai. Like, there's like literally simple.
For those of who don't understand Hindi, that means you're mad. That you're just mad. We don't have a concept of mental illness.
Exactly.
That
That you're and not even mad, you're mental.
you're mental. Yeah, you're nuts. Yeah.
Mental. And so much of that we've put in the context of religion, not even,
Mhm.
so and so was, they have a curse on them.
Yeah.
So you take them to see a priest or a Sufi or whatever. But I don't know about you guys, but I was never educated through either our school system or our community that
Mhm.
there is bipolar, that there is schizophrenia, that there is depression. I don't remember. I
Or
remember.
even those things being acceptable medical conditions, those things are like you said, the curses or unnatural things that happen to people that are not supposed to. They're not classified as physical ailments like they could be.
True. And it's also like, just get over it.
Yeah,
This whole notion of get over it.
exactly.
Yes.
Mine was like, well, you should have known better. Well, what were you thinking? You were going out with a white guy. Like, I remember it was like 25 years ago in India. It was not acceptable.
Mhm.
Like today, I see how much more acceptance of interracial marriages. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's accepted 100%, but it's more acceptance.
I would say, Madhu, even like finding your own spouse was not acceptable, let alone cross races and religions and all that. So I feel we've some way come far enough in that aspect that probably women have more choice to find their own spouses now. But I still see stigma around, like, the choices that you make if they're not of your kind, your tribe, your kind of people. Yes, totally can relate to that.
But there are still also women out there who don't have that choice still,
Oh
and
yeah.
who don't feel they have that choice still. If they truly do or not, that's a different story. But you are meant to believe that you don't have it. You're meant to believe to follow and not to think for yourself. Whereas now you have this whole different notion and generation who are thinking differently. And how do you handle that? How do you work with that? That has become a bit of a story now, but you went through it when it wasn't normal.
Mhm.
And on top of that, you had abuse, and you also flee to a completely different country where you didn't have anyone you know. So how did you overcome that?
It's not. I still think about that on sometimes consistent basis. What was the one thing? Like, what was my thought process and how? And I think I'm a joyful person.
Yes, you are. I can vote for that.
Right? And I just kept thinking, there are so many people. There are like maybe people that I can count on two hands that hurt me.
Mhm.
But I'll need a book to write down the names of the people that showed up to help me. Right?
Woo!
That is
Oh,
amazing. Bravo to that.
But think about it, how often we go back, and I can only speak for me. I go, whenever I'm in that pity party mode, why did this happen to me? And and I had to go back to thinking, well, look at how many people showed up. To
yes.
help a stranger. They didn't know me. They didn't want anything from me. Yet they showed up. I have this incredible friend of mine Masteram and his wife Mudang, I speak of him in my chapter. He flew from San Francisco to India to pay off this policeman to help me get my son back. And I did not know he had actually called the lawyer when I was in the shelter and offered her a retainer and didn't even let me know because he knew I would feel I couldn't, like, $5,000 was like a lifetime earning for me at the time because I had nothing.
And Madhu, I also feel like it's hard for us to ask when we are so ambitious. And that was so powerful gift which came on right time for you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's the feeling of grace with us always. Because really, if God wanted me dead, I would have been dead so many times, so much torture that I'd been through. There were times that I tried to take my own life because I was in so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And part of some of the stuff you don't know, my sister died of suicide and she was only 17. And I felt like, the purpose of my life was lost because I was working so hard to take care of my siblings and my parents. And then I couldn't protect her from the pain that she was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much in that. And so I just kept thinking, how am I going to show up for people that showed up for me? How am I going to honor people that actually trusted me, had faith in me, and never really wavered in their faith, their trust in me? So that's probably was the one thing that kept me not just going, but kept me moving towards getting my life better and better and better.
That is
And Madhu, I just love that about you. Like, you're so much giving. Like, whenever we have been in call with you, like all this, like even making this book possible, whenever you're there, you will say something and it's so impactful and we all are in tears. So it's like you're such a beautiful, inspiring soul. I always wanted to say that. And there's one part of your story, which was after you got your son back. You felt that need of giving. And then you took over more foster kids. Like, wow. Like, you have to be as Jesus, I should say, to take on more people in your life when you're already going through so much healing and pain of yourself. How was that like? Like, what was that moment where you felt like, okay, I need to be a foster parent now and give that support to the kids who needs, like, they are not the normal kids, the kids who has gone through so much trauma themselves and needs so much special attention? How did you do that? What was inside you that made you be like so motherly and so caring and so loving?
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge each and every one of you. A couple of times I'd given up on me when we were writing this chapter, and each and every one of you just kept pouring love and support into me. It was one space I never felt judged. And I got to tell you, I felt judged by especially Indian women my whole life because I was so out of the norm. Right? So I want you to know, as like, Martina, you and Priyanka, you two are younger, like fair bit younger than myself and Cam. We're so proud. I feel so proud when I see you guys. It's like younger version of me, but supercharged in the space of heart, in this space of education, in this space of love, in this space of openness, in this space of just honoring yourself. So I just want you to remind you, I'm proud of you. And what was my thought process of my, taking on foster kids? Seriously, like as I shared earlier, originally I wanted to go and work at Mother Teresa's orphanage, I didn't want to have kids of my own because even as a child, I was finding pencils and stuff like that for street kids, teaching them how to read and write. So like I had a following of kids, I'm telling you. It was so funny. So like there are times I'd walk, I'd be in the square, there'd be like 30, 40, 50 kids. So every week I'd have larger following of kids coming from different areas to learn how to read and write.
I can totally visualize that.
It was fun.
You are our Indian Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
I named you this now.
Thank you. But seriously,
Like modern day Mother Teresa, I should say that. Even Mother Teresa was Indian. So modern day Mother Teresa.
and that just fills my heart with joy. Now, you know how we talked about? I truly am made of joy. And I felt I was losing joy, or I had lost joy through so much pain. And every time, and this is another thing I learned, and I think about some of this a lot. Every time I'm fearful, I go give bigger.
Oh my goodness.
Because that's when I'm building the capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if I go smaller in that moment, I'm not building a new muscle. And that's in my business, that's in anything that I want to do. If I am fearful of something, I try to supercharge it in that moment just to get out of that fear. Right? But I thought, okay, how am I going to raise my child alone? And I grew up in India. I grew up with hundreds of kids around me. Like we used to climb trees and find parrots and, go do things as a pack.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine me wanting to have more kids because what I had been through and what you don't know, because my son was born with C-section, but I was overdue by 2 weeks and my water bag had broken for 24 hours before I ended up in the hospital. A friend of mine took me to the hospital because my son's father refused to take me to the hospital. So I could have died, but I woke up during the surgery. So as they were cutting my stomach, I woke up because they didn't have enough anesthetic in me.
Wow.
So just the thought of having another child was like, oh, even now, just the thinking of that makes me, yeah, I can't. Right? So, but feeling so much love for kids, I couldn't raise my child alone. And I didn't know you got paid a small fee for fostering. I thought I had to make so much money. So I was working really hard. So I was thinking, okay, if I make this much, I could have one child. If I made this much, I could have two children. So I finally called them and said, okay, so I've saved this much. I just secured this rental place that has 4 bedrooms, but I can only afford to pay for 2 extra children. And they're like, no. If you qualify, we will help you with the food. It was like $22 a day. So it was like it was not extreme. I'm like, oh my God. So that means I can have 6 kids. They're like, no, you're only allowed 4.
You would have taken 10 if they would allow you to take 10.
We get resourceful, right? I'm sure Madhu would have gone resourceful and taken
But I
this.
did have most of the time 10 kids. Because then I ended up fostering kids with high need. I did a lot of courses as a single parent. And then I ended up meeting my husband now. He had 3 daughters, and his ex-wife had an extra daughter from her next marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then most of the time, those kids had sleepovers at my house because I was the fun house.
Nice.
So funny, I say,
Can you imagine that?
The joy of Madhu.
Gives me joy. Being around kids gives me hope that we maybe didn't have a choice in how our life was run, but we have the ability to make an impact no matter who those kids are. And I believe we all have a collective responsibility to our kids, not just one person. Each one of us is responsible to help these kids along. And that's why, again, remember I talked about how whenever I'm afraid, I make my
So
things
big.
so much bigger.
That is such a powerful nugget for anyone who's listening to. When you feel small, when you feel fearful, supercharge yourself, make yourself bigger. That is such a powerful thing because no one else is going to come and give you that power. It has
No.
to come from within.
Yes.
Totally. Right. So right now I'm in the process of creating this foundation for mental health. And I should tell you, like yesterday and this morning, I was thinking, what am I gonna talk about? Like it doesn't end. See, this is the thing. I want women to know and men to know and kids to know, if they're ever watching this, there's no destination to this journey. It's you're living every single day as though you're writing a new destination.
Yes.
So
Wow.
It
beautiful.
changes, right?
That
It
is so
changes.
true.
As you know, my son, who's 25 years old, he was in the hospital for almost 60 days this time because he struggles with severe mental health challenges. And right now, I have a different mission, different purpose than it was 25 years ago, 20 years ago.
What's powerful here is that the definition of success for you is giving back. And whichever phase in your life you were, you found somebody or somewhere or somehow to give back, to count yourself as successful as opposed to just receiving and monetary or this growth or that growth. So that is amazing and so powerful about your story as well. Madhu, I'm going to take you back to something you said before. How you said that your why throughout was the love, determination, and giving back to your family. And I feel I want to touch on this topic a little bit. As women, we are nurturing, we are caring, we are giving. It is in our DNA to serve, right? That's universally true for women. But then when it comes to Indian culture, that there's a little bit of a mega impact to that, or even there's an expectation or there's a mindset or a belief that's set in right when we are born to serve before you serve yourself. And oftentimes I find guilt associated with it if you think of yourself before you think of anyone else, and a loss of self-identity, or feeling that you're not worthy enough, or you are worthy if you serve the others first. What is your thought on that topic? And and anyone can answer to that, but Madhu, especially you, I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that. Does that resonate with you? Have you seen that in our culture as such? And what can we do collectively? Because as we all said, this is not just a book, this is a movement. We want people to really bring those issues forward that hold women back, and especially women from Indian culture. And how can we move them, supercharge them, energize them, give them the power from within to rise from those situations?
Again, it's been a discovery journey, and I'm sure it will evolve and change as I move through different phases in life. I learned something a long time ago, and it's so simple. We can only give what we have. So if we're carrying guilt, that's what we tend to offer to others without even knowing. If we carry shame, without even knowing, we tend to give it to others. If we carry love, we tend to give it to others without even knowing. We carry joy, we give it to others. And that's why it became so important for me to feel joy. I've been doing these meditations now with Joe Dispenza for a while. And my biggest thing was, I want to feel joy. I want to carry joy. And I don't want to be a hypocrite that is feeling pain all the time and pretending to give joy, because it doesn't work. Right? Because it's the transference of energy. You know how it is? You talk to somebody, you can't see them, but they're so happy talking to you. You can feel their energy through whatever medium that they're communicating with you. So yes, I've carried guilt for a long time. I thought my sister had died of suicide because of me being so futuristic in that time. And I carried the guilt that my father died in the situation that he did because I wasn't able to be there and provide for them as I should have. I carried guilt of so many things. And guilt, I'm learning still, is such a wasted emotion, right? And if we can learn to put ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
now we're giving that information with the example. We're not being a hypocrite. And I've been there. So there's nothing I can say that I couldn't judge anybody because I'll be judging me. Right? So it's so important for us women to find that space for ourselves, just that little space between I got to do this for somebody else to this is what I need to feel whole so I can give at the highest capacity. And it's still a balance. Like even right now, I was supposed to do Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within event. I'm in Kelowna because my son just got out of the hospital and he's not in that space. My husband, we have a grandchild here that's visiting. Well, he's a baby, he's so cute. So I realized it's not fair to them because that's my need.
Right.
I understood. So when I go home and I'm doing business mastery, I'm not surrounded with people that need me right now. Right now, this is what I need to do to feel whole because their mental health is important. Their joy is important. Right? I used to shout like down people's throat, come on, you got to do this seminar. This will change your life.
It has to come from within. Yep. You can't shove it like a pill. It's so
Exactly.
true.
I learned. I do me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to teach you by example.
Right.
And people have, like I have friends of mine that have called me, said, whatever next seminar you go to, take my wife with you because I have seen you transform.
I love that. When you become a reflection of joy, when you've transformed so much, that motivates people. What are you doing? Let me find out. What are you doing to get here? Cool.
Totally. Right? Like I get calls from people all the time. Can you teach me how you became successful? And I'm like, well, transfer what you want to feel. If you want to feel joy, feel joy. Don't don't depend on other people to give you that because that's our right. We actually can feel that. And also maybe this is by far maybe one of the most important thing to remember for us as women. My happiness does not belong to my husband.
Yes.
My happiness does not belong to my children. My happiness does not belong to my friends. Imagine how much power we're giving another human being. They can't even take care of their own happiness, yet we're telling them, take care of mine.
Take
Right?
control. Yes. Take control of your own. Yep.
Exactly. So just find
Powerful.
those little things that we can do to give ourselves joy, to feel whole. If it's reading, go read. Even if it's 5 minutes, go listen to a book. Go have a bath. Go find friends. If your husband is working a lot of hours, right? Find something that you can bring to the table. And beautiful story. Like last night, my stepdaughters. I have the most beautiful children, seriously, and they're like, "How did you put up with this?" Rachel said to John, "Dad, you're lucky Madhu stayed with you. We tortured her." But what they didn't understand is they were just kids. I was adult. I could not put my expectations of my happiness on them. They're just trying to figure shit out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? So when we take control of our own happiness and do not blame other people for what has happened to us, I was shifting from being a victim to a victor.
Love it.
Wow.
Love it.
Welcome to a victor.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's beautiful. So
Because
powerful.
now I had the power. Nobody could take that away from me.
Yep. And you chose to not live in those moments, but to move ahead in your life and let them be what they were, let them be lesson learned, which is so powerful. Madhu, I have another question for you. Like, I know you were young, you were vulnerable, you were stuck in a very unhealthy relationship for a very long time. You were in and out, in and out. And this is not just your story. I feel like there's so many women that end up in those situations where, and I know Martina said that earlier too, they keep going back into that unhealthy, non-serving, abusive relationship over and over again. And I think it's very easy to be on the outside and recommend or see the big picture or see that you're stuck. But it's like when you are so close in a situation, you don't see the whole picture, right? It's like you're inside the bottle and you can't read the label that's outside of the bottle, right? It's like you're so close to the elephant that you don't know whether it's the tail or the leg or what you're seeing, right? So what are some of the common traps, like from outside looking in now at the situation that now you're like, far removed, not emotionally, but yet the time wise and distance wise, and now you can look at the whole picture, giving an advice to someone who is a younger you stuck in that situation, what advice would you give them? And what are some of the common traps that women keep getting back into? Could you speak to that a little bit to someone else who is in your situation today that you were 20 some years ago?
Okay. I really truly want to serve other women because other women have served me. Anytime, and that's not just for a relationship in marriage or intimate relationships. I'm talking about relationships in general. Anytime you're made less than consistently, you have to question what need of this person you're serving, right? What need of your own are you serving? Because being a victim, we tell ourselves a different story than we do being a victor. Right? Anytime you have somebody making you feel less than for your looks, for the way you speak, the way you do, like most abusive relationships, they're not just physically abusive. A lot of them would be mentally abusive, sexually abusive, emotionally abusive, spiritually abusive. Because anytime we're feeling less than, we can't go out and be our true self. And it's not to say one should leave their spouse, because that's the furthest thing. We're committed to a relationship, but recognizing those patterns. When that person walks in and your energy is sucked out, whether it's your husband, boyfriend, your friend who pretends to be a good friend, but really sucks everything out of you. They don't want a solution. They just want to dump their garbage on you. Anytime somebody says to me, "Oh, because of you," or "if you'd only done this, my life would be better," or "if you'd only done this," how do I have that kind of control over other people? I don't. And the delusion that I felt that I could change somebody, in my dreams, it worked beautifully. In my imagination, seriously, I would have this wild imagination how I could help heal my son's father of all the trauma if I was kind to him, if I made him only the right food that he wanted to eat, if I made sure that he could come and go as he pleases. I would work 20 hours to make sure he didn't have any responsibility of any kind. But this is the bullshit part. I did the same shit to my kids also. I literally chopped the legs from under them And it was my doing. It had nothing to do with them. So I had to ask, what need of mine is this serving? Why do I have this need to take care of another human being who is not there in the same capacity? Right? And my relationship grew so much more beautiful with my husband. And like we're together almost 20 years now. It's crazy. We have better relationship now because the expectations that I had from a normal relationship are removed. My expectation is I love you, I respect you, and I can truly say a lot of my success has come from the support I feel from my husband and my kids. Like my husband, he makes me feel better than what I normally am. Right? Just by his actions, not what he's saying. He's a farm boy from Canada, so he doesn't use a lot of those romantic words. But his
Which we
action,
always want to hear, right, Madhu? As a
oh my God,
woman, we want to
totally,
be loved.
totally. But
Mhm,
he is somebody who always makes me feel better than I am.
mhm,
Mhm.
Makes me believe I can do more than I do.
mhm,
Right? So that is the person, but it also grew into that relationship in 20 years because the respect that we felt for one another. I didn't have that. I didn't know it was possible. I should tell you this. I did not know it was possible. But now, being here, I know it's possible. So when women that have gone through something like that and might feel, oh my God, that's maybe what if that was the best I could have had? No, change you. Seriously, if we can change ourselves, and every single woman should do some personal development courses now with online presence. We can do them for free, really.
Right.
Look, there are 15 women in this book. Each one of us have offered to help mentor women that are going through challenges. And when we talk about this is a movement that we're creating, it's scary as hell for me to think, oh my God, now I have to actually show up because I'm so used to just flying under the radar and just doing things behind the scene, but recognizing that we are meeting a need. I'm not saying it's okay for somebody to abuse us. But if we don't do personal development, we don't understand the differences. The abuse is happening to me, or life is teaching me a lesson, get the hell out, and make my life a masterpiece the way I see it.
I love that, Madhu. And just to summarize, your advice is to identify the patterns, see those situations, see how it's serving me, the relationship, the other person, and get into personal development. That's so rightfully said, wonderfully said. So, my next question to you is about writing this book, this chapter as a process. And your story is so powerful, so emotional, so touching. It goes through such a variety of situations, life situations that you had to deal with. Was it difficult to write, or was it therapeutic to write? How was the journey of writing it?
Initially, I was fearful. As a child, until I was like in my adolescence, I used to write so much. I used to do poetry, I used to write short stories, and my mother found my storybooks and she burnt them. And just people are trying to protect you. And so I had this in my mind that there's no way I could be an author. But I realized, and actually Luke Wren is one of my mentor, and Martina, you're in that incredible greatness group with me. And Luke has been working with me on letting go of shit
mm,
for almost a year now. Right? And even when you think you've let go of shit, you haven't. So writing the that story was really powerful. It was not hard as a writing part of it, but going back and feeling that emotion.
Yeah.
But what I learned though recently, and actually it was in Cancun with Joe Dispenza's 1 week long meditation training, he talked about with like experience without charge, knowledge without charge becomes wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding now I can talk about a lot of those things without that charge because I chose to leave the victimhood behind because it was not serving me. It served me for a long time. You have to understand. It rewarded me for a long time feeling the victim because I didn't have to step outside of my box and do bigger things. I could play it small. But when you recognize, oh shit, now what? Now I'm no longer the victim. How am I going to make the transition? And that's what I'm right now. I'm scared. I want to, I'm working on this foundation that would help with mental health. My mission is to help educate moms and parents and take that education even to school system. Every school, every child, every parent should be educated about mental health and mental illness because we can help our children better, right? Them recognizing, us recognizing, so we don't have this tug of war. We don't have this, I used to think, how could I, everything I've been through, everything I've sacrificed, how could my son do this to me?
Mm-hmm.
And learning he wasn't doing anything to me. He was hurting. He's still hurting. But putting my guilt, remember what I said? We give what we carry.
Yeah.
I threw a lot of fucking guilt on his lap.
Mm.
Pardon you can cut that part out if you want to, Kim. But when you recognize that, you think, oh my God, I don't want, I only want to share joy. And that's what I want to feel most of the time. So knowledge, experience without charge becomes wisdom. So writing that chapter, initially, it felt like pain. But when I reread it, understanding it was so much different. It was like, okay, there is some wisdom in there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Any final words that you would want to share with the readers, the viewers of this panel interview? Anything you'd like to share? Any final thoughts?
I want to encourage every single woman to, reach out to us, and collectively we will make sure we help guide you through. And I know I can speak for each one of you because I've gotten to know your hearts and your capacities is huge. Collectively, we can do this. Don't have to do it alone. Nobody built an empire alone. Nobody, so we can do this together. Reach out to us and let's fuel this movement. Anytime something good catches momentum, let's throw everything at it. Actually, Luke runs at that. I love it. Right? So we're collectively raising the standards for women. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's step into our greatness. And again, another one of Luke's thing. Oh my God. So yeah.
We need to have Luke here.
I know we
But I
do.
feel like his presence already here.
But
We
you know
feel
what?
his presence through Madhu. We definitely
Yes.
feel his presence to Madhu.
Yes.
Because he's been instrumental in helping me see who I am. Right?
You're powerful.
Yes.
So I say anybody, men, women, because I hope lots of men read this, because we have some incredible men in our life and we want more of them, right? We all have incredible sons. We want more of them. So just let go, and let go and have an incredible life. We're here to help guide along. and it's a journey. Just enjoy.
Yes, I love that.
Beautifully said. And what a great way to end this panel interview. Although I'm enjoying it so much that I can continue talking to you, Madhu, for a long time. And I can say the same for Priyanka and Martina. Thank you all for joining us today for this conversation. We can't wait for the